Moon river wider than the mile, I'm lost in you. Welcome back to Breakfast with Tiffany show. I'm your host, Tiffany Rossdale. Thank you so much for each and every single one of you for tuning in to another episode. Today we have a very special guest. She is a kimono researcher and she's been doing it for more than 20 years. Let's have on the show Sheila. Sheila, welcome on the show.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Ohayo gozaimasu. I wonder what's your morning motivation when you wake up in the morning?
Mm, I always have my mind full of the kimono things I'm going to do that day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You mentioned also about when you dress up the kimono, you have to prepare that. That's a lot of like before the day before
Yes.
you wake up,
Yes.
right?
I do that before.
So that's like your normal routine every day because you're gonna wear a kimono when you go out
Yes.
normally, right?
Yes. Yes. So it's there, all the pieces are there waiting for me to put it on.
Oh wow. Sheila also teaches in university. Do you have to wear kimono every day to when you teach?
I don't have to, but I chose to. And when I was teaching full-time, I did wear kimono to the university every day. I used to wear it just once a week when I had my kimono class. And I thought, hey, I could do this every day. Then so many more students would see it and be influenced.
They get inspired when they see you wearing a
Right.
kimono.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just stopped wearing yofuku and wore kimono all the time.
Plus, you probably stand out more in the university wearing a kimono as a sensei
Right.
in school,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I want to know your background. Where are you from? And tell us a little bit more about your hometown and how you end up here in Japan.
Okay. I grew up in a town called Bristol in the UK. It's southwest, a big port city. It's quite a historical place, and it has quite a lot of artistic stuff going on. But I left Bristol when I went to London to university, and I studied art and drama there. Somebody recommended to me that I go to this martial arts class called Shintaido, which is kind of like karate. My teacher was coming to Japan and said, why don't you go to Japan for the summer to study it in like the motherland, So I only intended to be here for the summer vacation. And I kind of never went back.
After that.
After that, I never went back. So I've been in Japan for 36 years.
Wow.
I qualified as an English teacher because I figured that was probably how I was going to earn my bread and butter. And then I just got so hooked on kimono that I really wanted to publish a book.
About kimono?
Yes. And I would write to lots of publishers like Tuttle Books, or Thames and Hudson, big art publisher in the UK. And I'd say, how about a book on kimono? And they all write back and say, no, it won't sell.
I'm sorry, how old were you when you decided to do that?
That was more than 20 years ago. That was about 25 years ago.
Okay.
And I couldn't understand because there are books out there on African textiles or the sari or something. So why do they think a book on kimono wouldn't sell? And I was so determined that I went and did a PhD in kimono because I really, really wanted to publish a book.
And there's a PhD for kimono.
Well, I did it in the art and design department, but it's kind of sociology of kimono.
About the culture and everything, right?
Yes.
Were there a lot of students like taking the class?
No,
like
there was only me. I did it from here, but at a university in the UK, which is, I don't think it's possible anymore because I'm the only person who got through the program.
Right.
And as soon as I finished and got through it, I'm like, right, now I'm going to rewrite this so people can read it and understand it.
you're
And
basically like translating what you've learned into a book for
yes,
people to learn. That's
yes,
amazing.
yes. And I'd used so many books, I'd read so many books during my PhD. And there was one like series of books that were called Body Fashion Culture or something like that. That series was the most influential to me when I was reading all this fashion sociology. No books about kimono there, but it was all about fashion and society, all different kinds of fashion. And so I just decided I want my book in this series. And I thought, well, it's probably a really long shot because it's published by Bloomsbury, which is a pretty big publisher in the UK.
But I wonder though, because I know living in Japan for a very long time too, the amount of the Japanese when it comes to culture, their culture, how they're really protective, or like I mean, like they're very careful and they're very, you know, about their culture. And you as a foreigner, applying it to you and then learning about it, did you had any struggles in the beginning? Like, of course, like I don't know, like how is it like back then with the Japanese, you know, like the very traditional Japanese people, like why a foreigner would like to do that, you know, like in a way that it's not the normal way to do it, right?
Right.
So I wonder how is it like when you back then?
Yeah, there were some things that I wanted to put in the book that I couldn't put in. Like I really wanted to introduce the whole variety of the kimono industry today. I did interview some people who then refused to have it put in the book because they didn't know, they couldn't read the book.
It's all in
because
English.
it's in English,
right,
or something like that. So, and I would try and persuade them, you know, this is your loss because this book is going to be sold worldwide and people are going to get their image of what the kimono industry is from this book.
right, right.
But that wasn't enough to persuade some people. So there were some interviews that I had to cut out.
So when did you start? When did you start noticing you really had that acceptance from them?
Right. Well, that it takes a long, long time. And since I decided that I wanted to publish a book, to publishing the book was 20 years. So I've been like
long time
knocking on people's doors or trying to talk to people or making I made a few little movies, YouTube movies about some new designers. It's been a very long, slow process. And, you know, I want to make a little movie about your brand. It's like, why? Who are you?
exactly, right?
Yeah. But once you get acceptance in one place, that sort of leads to
Opens up the doors.
Yes. Leads to acceptance in other places. And people know that, you know, I've been here long enough now for people to know that I'm not going away, and also that I don't have any kind of ulterior motives. I don't really have anything to sell. I mean, I've made some style books now, as well as my social life of kimono book, but I'm not a brand. I'm not supporting any one particular artisan over another. I just really love kimono and think that the textile heritage that is in this culture is so rich that it should be known about throughout the world.
To earn that trust, you know, like in Japan, I definitely know that because once Japanese people trust you, it's like the loyalty, right? They're gonna support you from then, and then it'll take as long as I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of probably people now that supports you since like even from not from the beginning, right? Until now they still support you. That's very Japanese way of, I think, thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I started my Instagram about 2.5 years ago. My daughter made me do that.
And you have a lot of followers on Instagram.
Yeah, now like 37,000.
37,000. Yeah.
So it's the biggest kimono Instagram. And it actually grew out of making a style book because I'd done my sociology book, and now I wanted to say, I said it in words, I want to say it in pictures. I want to show people how lovely and how fashionable kimono can be. So of course, when you make a photographic book, there are loads of photographs that don't get into it. So those became the start of my, starting
to be an influencer.
Instagram, yeah. And that has really extended my reach, having an Instagram. And I got picked up last year by a group of weavers in Tango, which is an outlying area of Kyoto. And it's famous for making like the white silk that kimono like this are made of. So there were lots of other Japanese famous kimono influencers they could have picked up, but they chose me, which was really amazing. And that's the trust thing, And that was just for 1 year, but now I consider some of the weavers that I've worked with down there to be my friends. And I will take any chance that I get to promote their work, and they still want to use me and do stuff with me. So that's really exciting.
So once that you got that trust, it opens you to many opportunities. So for all the opportunities that you've received ever since, like the beginning you started doing the kimono as a researcher, what was the biggest opportunity that opened for you?
Being able to contribute to the Victoria and Albert Museum's kimono exhibition in 2020.
Oh, recently, like the last year?
Yes, it was the biggest kimono exhibition that there's been outside Japan.
Wow.
Unfortunately, COVID, right? So it closed after 3 weeks. But I was invited to introduce the Victoria and Albert Museum to young, fashionable brands, kimono designers in Tokyo. And also to write a chapter in the book, because the Victoria and Albert Museum always produces a big book to go with an exhibition. It's not just a catalogue, it's a book where you can learn stuff about the topic. So it was really great to be able to contribute to that. And I was so excited because those designers, at first I'm like, this woman from the Victoria and Albert Museum wants to meet you, but they're like, what's the Victoria and Albert Museum? And I'm like, it's the #1 museum in the world for arts and crafts. Right. You really need to know about the
But they didn't have any idea.
You really need to meet this woman. And they're like, well, okay, whatever.
That's very
if it works out. But once they really understood, they got so into it, and they went to London. And of course, they got this really fancy invitation to the opening party, and it was so exciting.
How many brands did you brought to the?
6. Oh, maybe a little more actually. 6 or 7.
And they showcase it there, right?
Yes, and each of them has a piece that was bought by the Victoria and Albert Museum and is there forever. It's a commitment forever. The museum will never throw those items
Wow.
away. It was so exciting to be with them there in their kimono. And they were kind of the stars in a way because, all these people from the UK were not wearing kimono. And they're the guys wearing kimono, and they're so fashionable, and there's lots of people, can I take your photograph? So it was just amazing. only intended to be here for the summer vacation. And I kind of never went back. And I was so determined that I went and did a PhD in kimono because I really, really wanted to finish. I just really love kimono and think that the textile heritage that is in this culture is so rich that it should be known about throughout the world.